Scripture says, "In all you do, do it for the glory of God." We're told that our true worship is to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice. We're in this series where we're talking about unlove, and there are some things in Scripture where God tells us, I want you to stop loving one thing in order to love me more. And one of the things we're going to talk about this morning is unloving applause. Now, one thing we have done is we've talked about replacing every one of those things that we're told to unlove with something we should love. And on one side, the Bible is going to teach us to unlove the applause of men and seek the applause of God. Like this young girl who's running, she's running for the applause of God, not for the medals or the accolades or the applause of men, but she's running and she's giving herself to the applause of God. Now, it's one thing to enjoy. I mean, we all enjoy a pat on the back. We all enjoy a attaboy. We all enjoy being told we've done a good job. It's sort of something that we experience and we want, we crave, even as young people. Just last week, I walked outside the back door to go work in my garden. We have one of the trampolines in the back, and I walked out my door, and there's two of my kids jumping on the trampoline, and they're doing tricks, they're laughing, and you know, my son and daughter said to me, "Dad, will you watch this?" And I walked out, and I mean, I've seen them jump on the trampoline a gazillion times at this point, you know, and they're jumping and they're having joy. And they said, "Dad, watch this." And I watch them jump and I watch them do a trick. And I said, "Wow, that's good job, guys. That's great. It's not something I can do. I really appreciate that you did that." And I walked out and worked in my garden. And then I heard Carrie, she had walked out onto the porch, and what happened? The kids, "Mom, watch this." And they did their trick again, and Mom says, "Wow, good job, guys. That's pretty good, you know." And then she goes on doing her thing, and then I walked back into the house from the garden. On my way into the house, what did I hear? "Dad, watch this." And it was the same thing, you know, they're doing exactly the same thing. And I said, "Wow, guys, that's really good. That's great, guys." And I walked in, and it's one thing to really crave the appreciation and crave the acknowledgement that, hey, you've done good, you've done something great. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to hear your father say, "Proud of you, you did good." In fact, on a separate note, if I was preaching a different sermon, I would say this to all of you fathers: start telling your kids more about how proud of them you are. Start telling your kids more about how much you appreciate them. Start telling your kids more you love them. Don't tell me, "Well, that's just not me. It's not who I am. I'm not very verbal." Your kids are craving to hear it, just like you were when you were young. But there comes a time where we can cross a line, and life becomes all about craving that appreciation. Life becomes all about craving the applause that people might give us. We might even live the life we live as we try to grow with God and walk with God in a way that we're looking not for His applause, but for the applause of people. And so what we're going to find is that is an empty pursuit. It's a very unsatisfying pursuit, too. If you've ever had the experience of feeling like you were underappreciated, in fact, I'm just curious, is there anybody here that has ever felt like they weren't appreciated enough? I'm just curious. Most of you, the rest of you, you're like, everybody appreciates you for just as much as they should. We all feel like we live in a world where we don't get appreciated enough, and the truth is we do, because people just generally are unappreciative. And that's just the truth. That's the way it is. Jesus found that to be true in His ministry. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But the truth is, people don't appreciate everything that we have done and all that we have given the way that we often feel like they should. And they don't always agree with how we're doing it. And it can become a futile pursuit to try to please everyone. There's this old fable about this old fella who was walking along with a donkey and a little boy. He was pulling the donkey, and the little boy was walking beside him. They walked into a village, and the people in the village said, "You're a cruel old man. You should let the boy ride the donkey." So the old man put the boy on the donkey, and they went to the next village. Walking through the village, the people said, "You are a foolish old man. You should Teach that boy to pull the donkey, and you should be riding the donkey for your help. So the old man pulled the switcheroo, and the boy pulled the donkey. The old man got on the donkey, and they came to the next village, and they said, "You are a foolish old man, making this young boy pull the donkey while you sit on it. You both should ride the donkey together." And so the old man got the little boy on the donkey, and they went to the next village. At the next village, they said, "You're such a cruel guy. You make the donkey carry the both of you. You should be carrying the donkey." And it was said that the next people that saw him saw an old man carrying a donkey. And life can become like that. We can find that not everybody agrees with how we're going about things. Not everybody will be happy with the way that we're doing things. But the truth is that we ought to be looking not for the approval of people who can be whimsical, who can disagree, who can be unappreciative, but we ought to be looking for the approval of our Heavenly Father. We ought to be looking for the approval of God, who loves us more than any father ever could. And what happens is this desire for approval goes with us into life, and we can start to live in an unhealthy way. We can start to live in a way to where when people are giving us the approval and the appreciation that we desire, we just feel like we're on top of a mountain. Emotionally, we're happy, and we feel like we're experiencing life as it should be. But then someone doesn't give us the appreciation we feel like we should have, and emotionally, now we're depressed. We're down in the dumps. We don't know how we can live with ourselves. We have somebody's disapproval. And what can happen is we realize when we're in a place like that, when we go on this emotional roller coaster, that we have begun to seek the approval of men rather than the approval of God. We've begun to seek the applause of men rather than the applause of God. Some people into their adulthood live their entire lives looking for, seeking, trying to accomplish the approval of a father who will never give it. And they let that make them depressed. They let them make that something that kind of controls their life and all their decisions in life, even their personality. And the message this morning would be, stop looking for the approval of a man and start looking for the approval of God, your Heavenly Father, who loves you so much that He died for you, who loves you so much that He's provided a way for you to be with Him in eternity. He's a Father that will never let you down. And some people let this pursuit become something that affects them in the job world. They're always looking for the approval of the next boss, of the next group that might give them a promotion. They're always looking for the approval at the next job, and when they don't get it, I'm out of here. I'm not appreciated the way I should be. But it changes things when we start to look at it differently, when we start to look at life through the lens that I'm doing everything I do for the glory of God. That I'm living for His applause, for His approval, rather than the applause and approval of men. Jesus would teach this principle quite often. We see it in the scriptures a lot. The idea of the applause of men will be called the fear of man sometimes in Scripture. And Jesus would say, don't fear man, who only has the power to kill your body, but fear God, who has the power both to kill your body and send a man to hell for eternity. And we see what he's saying there is, don't put your whole life in the hands of people who only last a little while, and the approval of people who only last a little while, but put yourself in the hands of a Heavenly Father, of an eternal God, who makes eternal decisions. In other places, Jesus would say things like, it's right in God, or Jesus would say things like, make sure that you're following Him rather than people. Make sure that when you pray, you're looking to Him rather than people. The authorities one day tried to tell Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, to stop preaching the gospel. And Peter asked them a question. He said, is it right in God's sight to obey you rather than God? And sometimes what we need to do is ask the question, are we obeying God? Are we walking for God's approval rather than man's? There's a couple verses where we see this idea come out in Galatians chapter 1. It says, am I now trying to win the approval of men or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. I love the way that the apostle there was just honest. He's like, hey, if I was trying to please people, I wouldn't even follow Jesus. It wouldn't be worth it. But I'm trying to please God, and so I follow him. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, he says, on the contrary, we speak as men approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please men, but God who tests the hearts. And what he's teaching us there is this principle that we need to learn to not love the applause of men, but to seek the applause and the approval of God. For some of you, I would encourage you to use this as a next step to memorize this little verse. To memorize it, put it in your heart, and to think about what does it mean to seek God's approval rather than men's approval, and how could I live so that my whole life, not just a Sunday morning, but my whole life is the seeking of God's applause. One of the places that Jesus would teach us about this is in his longest and most influential, kind of most well-known sermons that he ever preached. We know it as the Sermon on the Mount. In the Sermon on the Mount, right in the middle of it, there is a section where Jesus starts using examples of ways that people live for the applause of men rather than the applause of God. And he sort of teaches us and shows us how to live in a way that we seek God's applause rather than the applause of men. And what I want to do is I want to just take this principle and I want to invite you to go with me to Matthew chapter 6. If you have a Bible, open it up. And we're going to be going through pieces of Matthew chapter 6. We're going to be looking at some of these places where Jesus talks about this. And we're going to see 4 different principles that he's going to say, if you live by these principles, it will help you live in a way that you're not seeking the applause of men. If you have your note sheets and your programs you should have received, pick them out. Begin writing. We're going to give you some fill in the blanks here. And one of the principles, we're going to dive right in. One of the first principles he says to live by is the principles where you obey him for his applause. You're not obeying him for the applause of people, but you're obeying him so that he will give you the applause. Here's how he says it. In Matthew chapter 6, starting in verse 1, he says, be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And I think what he's saying here is he's saying, don't do your acts of righteousness, don't do your acts of obedience for the applause of other people. We don't do things we don't seek the applause of people. We're seeking God's applause when we obey him. He doesn't say, by the way, don't do acts of righteousness. He doesn't say, no, just don't do it at all. What he says is when you do your acts of righteousness, make them more righteous. And here's how you do it. You make them more righteous by doing it for the right reason. You make them more righteous by asking, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? And remembering that you're doing it all for him. Now, I'll be honest with you. I like likes. I have a feeling you like likes. I mean, I've been on Facebook for a long time, and in 2009, Facebook introduced this little button called like. And I came across some statistics that said since 2009, when Facebook added the button like, that they have had trillions of likes. That every day there are something like 3 billion likes. Every day. That every minute there are hundreds and thousands of likes. And it can become this addiction. I don't know about you, I'm sort of an addictive personality. I put something on Facebook and I'll be like, oh, how many people liked it? Or, whoa, did it get liked? And then you start thinking, oh man, why didn't they like it? Or what's going on here? Did I do something wrong? Nobody's liking my stuff. And we can kind of get into this social media fix where we want the like. And you know what I think Jesus is saying here? If you're doing your acts of righteousness for somebody to click the like button, then when they click it, that's the only thing you get out of it. That little click, that moment of like, when you do it so that they might applaud you, then that applause is the only thing you're going to get. Instead, he says, do your acts of righteousness for my applause. For the applause of our Heavenly Father, for Jesus Christ to stand and applaud you when you serve Him. Do your acts of righteousness to serve Him. Now there's an interesting thing that goes on with what Jesus is saying here, because in chapter 5, at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, He told us to do something kind of almost sounds the opposite. He said, make sure that when you do shine your light, that you shine your light before men so that they might praise your Father. He actually tells us to be a light and to shine our light. Well, how do we do one and then do the other in secret? And I think what it comes down to is finding a balance, finding a way to say, what is my why? He doesn't say don't give. In fact, I think it's important that we give. I even think it's important that we give identifiably for accountability. It's important that we give. It's important that you have a leader who will stand up in front of you and say, I just asked the church to tithe and I tithe. But why? Why would a pastor say that? Is he saying that so that you can applaud him, so that you can click like? Or is he saying, follow me as I follow Jesus, so that we can all glorify God together? You see, there's a difference in the why, and we need to be careful about why we do what we do, about why we pursue righteousness. But Jesus is going to continue on. He's going to teach us another principle. He's going to say, make sure when you pray for His attention. You're not praying and worshiping for the attention of others. Here's what He said. He said in Matthew 6, beginning in verse 5, He says, when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. You get the like button idea right there? That's all they get. But when you pray, go to your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. And here Jesus uses, actually over and over again, He uses this word that I think sometimes gets overused and abused. And it's one of those words that I think is misunderstood. People will say to me, I don't want to go to church because the church is full of hypocrites. Someone else might say, yes, the church is full of hypocrites. And there is sort of a funny thing that I think when I hear that. I'm like, well, then stop going to the grocery store because the grocery store is full of hypocrites, and stop going to the doctor because the doctor's place full of hypocrites, and stop. There are hypocrites in this church. But don't misunderstand the idea of a hypocrite with the idea of a sinner. They're two different words with two different meanings. The church is filled with sinners who have come for the grace of Jesus, to ask for forgiveness and to ask for Jesus' help, to praise Him because He gives forgiveness and promises us eternal life. There's a difference between a sinful person who struggles sometimes with pride, who struggles sometimes with controlling their mouth, who struggles sometimes and has what I would call moments of insanity. All of us have them. We all have those moments where we just go crazy and we do things that we normally would not do. We do things that go against our own principles and ideas, and we do wrong sometimes. And then we come to Christ. We ask for forgiveness. We come to Christ and ask Him to help us grow. We come to Christ and we ask Him to help us make right the things we have made wrong. That's not a hypocrite. That's a sinful person living out the Christian life, which is this up and down thing, this up and down battle where we're trying to ask God's forgiveness, we're trying to repent, we're trying to walk with Jesus. But I want to tell you about a time where I was a hypocrite. I was in college, standing in the dorm hallway. And in our dorm, there was one telephone. And so you young people, there was a day where telephones were hooked to the wall. And there was a day where nobody had them in their pockets. This was one of those days. This was a time where there was no cell phones. The only people that had cell phones were very rich people or people who pretended to have one in their car. It had like this box thing that looked like a cell phone that was just goofy. I don't know why they did it. But at this time, there was a thing called a phone that was stuck to the wall, and you had to stand there to use it. And there was this thing where you didn't know who was calling. There was no caller ID. There was no way to know. And so the fun part of that is it made prank calls a lot of fun. And so I used to be a prankster. I'm not so much one anymore. I kind of outlived that. But this day I said to my friends who were around the hall, I'm like, guys, come on, watch this. And I got my friends to all come, and I dialed the number, and I said with my worst New York City accent, I don't even know if I can do it, I'm sorry, but I said, yeah, your floors are dirty and I want to sell you a vacuum. I got a Hoover for you. And I just started going into this vacuum cleaner salesman from New York City thing, and I went on, and this person on the other end of the line was like nice at first, but then got like, there's something going on here, and then they said, no thank you, politely hung up. And I watched and I dialed immediately afterwards the same number. And I went in, what, you don't want a vacuum? And I really just went in, and this person got a little bit irritated and then hung up on me faster. I dialed right away, called again, and 4 times I called, and 4 times this person picked up and got more and more amped up and angry. The 5th time I called, and the person was like yelling at me, and then I said, Mom, it's me. And so I used to do stuff like that to my mom all the time. I was actually very, very amazed that she never picked up it was me. I don't know. I have a unique voice, and I for sure thought she would know it was me. But so a hypocrite is a pretender. That's what the word hypocrite means. Somebody who acts, somebody who pretends, somebody who's pretending to be someone or something they are not. And it comes from the word that is translated here, hypocrite. It comes from the word actor. In their day, that's simply all it was. The people who held up the mask and did the plays, that was a hypocrite. It wasn't a word that was originally used to describe religious people pretending to have a relationship with God. But Jesus takes the word and he says that when people pray and pretend to have a relationship with God, when people worship and pretend to have a relationship with God, those people are actors. They're pretending to be something they're not. And so he says to us, don't do that. And if you're going to avoid doing that, you need to have a prayer closet relationship with me. Now, I, again, think it's very similar to the first one. There is a sense to where we do this together out in the open. We're here at worship. We just finished praying through song together and raising our hands and praising God and having a good time. Some of us like to get animated and dance around. Some of us like to clap and sing, and I can't do both and keep time, so I just choose one or the other. But all of us have different ways of doing it. But what we're not doing is we're not doing it in order to put on a show for this person next to us. We are dancing before Him and praising Him. We're singing to Him and praying to Him. But what Jesus is saying is that if the only times you're dancing and singing or praying, if the only times you are pretending to have a relationship with me are when you're out in public, then maybe we need to spend some time in the closet. Maybe we need to go to a place where we're actually praying and praising and when no one's watching. Where we're actually having a real relationship with Him. And so He tells us here, I want you to learn to pray, and sometimes we need to remember that our private life should be just as much of a life lived with God as our public life. Our private life ought to be one where we're praying the same way, when we're praising the same way, maybe even more so. If we ever find ourselves in a place where it's only out in public, then we're reminded, go to the closet. Stop pretending. And by the way, my mom has since forgiven me for my vacuum sales attempt. And please forgive me for my horrible attempt at doing a New York accent. It's been a long time since I lived there. The principle number 3 is this. Strive for His awards. Try to keep these all A words. Strive for His awards. Jesus is going to go beyond the things we do in relationship with Him, and He's going to start talking about the things that we do that are hard, sacrificial, things that we would strive to do. And He uses fasting as an example in Matthew 6:16. He starts out saying, when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces and show men that they are fasting. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head, wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to men that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. In other words, when you're making a sacrifice to worship Him, when you're making a sacrifice to serve Him, when you're making a sacrifice seeking His awards, seek His rewards only. You get a picture as you read through this that these people, they were like, not washing, they were making themselves like look gaunt and, oh, I'm so hungry, oh, I'm so suffering so much for my faith, and what they really want is someone to, wow, look at you are amazing, such a servant of God, and what He says is the like is all you get, if that's what you're after. That's all you get. Sometimes I think we can do this without fasting, we can do this in other areas. Oh, I've served so long as a Sunday school teacher. It's so hard. They don't listen to me. I've worked so hard and I've sacrificed so much. Oh, they don't ever say thank you. I've worked so hard cleaning the bathroom all the time. Look at me with my scrub brush. I've worked so hard doing these work projects. I've worked so hard, and we can do this. I know we can do this because I'm good at it. I can do it. They're like, Carrie, I just came home, my back hurts, and I've worked so hard. I need to drink water. Try to get her empathy, try to get her to move for me and do something. Oh, I've worked so hard, I've struggled and suffered so much as a pastor. And we try to invoke people's sympathy and mercy, and we try to get their approval that way. And what God is saying is as soon as you get it, when you're after it that way, that's all you get. There's no reward from Him. And so what He says instead is serve for an audience of one. Remember I mentioned that people will always be unappreciative. If we expect people to be unappreciative, we won't be surprised when they're not. They will not appreciate you and your service and your volunteering and your giving the way that they should. God will. He knows hearts. He sees it. I'm not saying we shouldn't be saying thankful. Thank you. I'm not saying we shouldn't try to be grateful, but we just never will be. It's in human nature. Jesus came as the light to the darkness, but the darkness did not receive the light because it loved the darkness. People in this world were very unappreciative to God the Father, who sent His Son. Jesus healed 10 lepers, and only one came and said, "Thank you." It's human nature. Jesus came to be the Savior of the world and the King, and we crucified Him on a cross. It's human nature to be unthankful. And if people are going to be unthankful and unappreciative of all that Jesus was willing to do, why do you think that they will be more so than you? Instead, just say, "I'm serving for an audience of one." Jesus, about to be betrayed by His good friend and disciple, about to be kissed and told He was loved in an act of betrayal, Jesus said, "Not my will, but yours be done." He was serving for an audience of one. He was unloving the applause of men, seeking the applause of God. In the next principle Jesus is going to teach us in the Sermon on the Mount, it moves on and He says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are bad, the whole body will be filled with darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." By the way, I didn't give you the fill in the blank. The fill in the blank for this one is this: to work for His assets. To work for His assets, to build His kingdom. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve Him, to love Him, to seek a relationship with Him, and to build His kingdom. Not our own. Now, He's going to use money as an example. We actually planned in this series to do a message about unloved money. But I cut that one out because we made time for Pioneer Bible Translators in the series. We're going to start a new series with the next message on the big day. We're going to start a new series, so we cut that one out. But here Jesus gives us another unlove. He says either you love God or you love money. So unlove money and love God. But I think He's using money as an example of saying, hey, put God's kingdom first. Seek to invest in His kingdom first. Tithing was a way that He taught us to put Him first. To unlove our money. To give so that we can put God first in that way. To store up our treasures in heaven rather than on earth. One of the things that you might notice is that Jesus will tell you wherever you direct your resources, that's where your heart's going to go. And I'll tell you, if your heart is not giving to God, your heart is struggling to love God. But I want to go to a different resource, because that's a sermon I'm saving for another day. There's another way we can store up treasure in heaven. And it's a more practical application for today, getting ready for a big day next week, and it's this. You know, one of the treasures you can store up in heaven is the people you've invited there.
Amen.
One of the ways that you can store up treasures in heaven is to say, hey, I'd like to invite you to know this gospel, to know this Jesus. I'd like to invite you to come and hear a message that's going to help you connect with God in eternity. You know, those of you who serve in the church, you are part of that message. Those of you who serve in any way, those of you who give in any way, are part of that message. There will be a day where we're in heaven and we will meet people that will come to us and say, wow, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that little church. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people who invited me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those of you who told me about Jesus' love and grace. And so one of the ways we can invest in his assets is just to make an invitation, to invite somebody to come to church. And I want to give you a very practical and real way you can do that. In your programs, you have these tickets, they're invitations to our big day. You don't need to know all the theology of the Bible. You don't need to know how to break down and how to preach a gospel sermon. All you have to know is how to say, I'd like to invite you to our big day at church. I'll show you how to do it. This is your training. I'd like to invite you to come to our big day. Next Sunday, man, we're going to have some good food. It would be great. Thank you. All right, that's great. I hope you're there. I want to plan on seeing you. But you know what? That's all it takes. And so I encourage you, invest in the kingdom. Look to seek to please God and seek to put an investment in the kingdom to build his assets, to build the church by simply making an invitation, saying, hey, I'd love to see you come on the big day. I'd encourage you this week to make your next step. I'm going to invite 3 people to come to our big day next Sunday at church. By the way, those of you who are already here today, I'm inviting you to come to the big day. And don't go camping, don't go away, don't go fishing. Come to the big day. Help us invest in the kingdom by making next week a really big day where we're able to share the message with people. But you know, we want to seek to not be pleasers of men. We want to seek not for the applause of men in our life, but we want to seek the applause of God, who has given us everything and who offers us everything that we need. And we need to learn in our lives to seek his pleasure rather than our own. I don't know if you're willing to do that. There's some next steps for you to take to say, I'm going to try to do that. But if you're willing to do that, I'd like to invite you to pray with me. And let's just ask God to help us as a church. I'm going to ask God to help me personally to learn to walk with him in a way that I seek his pleasure and his approval rather than men's. Let's pray. Lord God, I pray that you will help me to learn how to humbly seek you rather than the applause of people. I pray that you will help me to learn to find my importance in life, to learn to find my way in life, to learn that serving is not about looking for people's approval or a pat on the back or a like, but God, that I'm here to seek your glory, to shine for your glory, and to work for your glory, to build your kingdom. God, when you taught us to pray, one of the things you taught us to pray is that your kingdom would come and your will would be done. And God, I do pray that your kingdom will continue to grow in Vernonia, that your influence would permeate this town, that God, you would help us to invite people that they might come and help next week to be a great big day where you are glorified and honored and blessed. God, I just pray that you will use us to glorify you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We're going to enter into our time where we receive the offering right now. If you came and you're prepared to give today, you have your envelopes, you filled them out, you got ready. If you need to do that, keep doing that. If you came today and you aren't prepared to give, that's okay. There are a lot of ways that you can give to Vernonia Church. You can always take that envelope home, mail it in. Be sure to put a stamp on. You can go on to VernoniaChristianChurch.org at any time and set up giving. You can set up automated giving, which is what I do. You can text to give, which I don't get into that, but if that's something that's kind of your way to do things these days, you can get on your phone, call the number that's on, or text the number that's on there, and follow those instructions. You can do that. There are a lot of ways to give, and as you know, many of you received the letter that we sent out of all the things that we've been doing, and your giving matters. It really is making a difference. As we watch this church grow, reach new people for Christ, we are definitely a church that has been investing in the kingdom, and so we want to continue to do that. I'd like to encourage you as you continue to do that. But before we do we'd like to talk to those of you who are our guests today. Remember, I asked you to fill out as much information as you feel comfortable sharing. Please put your connection cards in the offering buckets as they come by. All of us will be doing that. But one of the things we want to do is we want to give you a gift. We have these books called Unshakable. It's a great book about how to stand strong when things go wrong. And so if you're here this morning, you're our guest, we would love to give you one of these books. There's a welcome guest table back there. All you have to do is simply walk by it and grab it on your way out. Nobody's going to try to talk to you or put you on the spot or anything like that. It's just simply a gift we want to give you, and we just want to say thanks for coming. It's just a great book, and it's a great way to encourage you. But the other thing we want to do, so I want to ask you to make sure you stick around, is we're going to collect all the connection cards, and we're going to really quickly try to get them back up here. We're going to do a drawing to see who gets us the movie tickets. It's just part of our Sunday fun day, summer Sunday fun day type stuff that we're doing. So we got some movie tickets we want to give away. So let's go ahead and pray. Just ask God to bless what we do right now as we give. And then we're going to stay seated, receive the offering. I'll come right back up after that with all the connection cards, and we'll do the giveaway. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just pray that you will bless what we do now as we give, that you will be honored, that God, we will use and take what we give together and use it to bring glory to you and to watch the kingdom grow. I pray, Heavenly Father, that you will continue to bless this church, continue to bless us as we try to do the work that you want us to do in this community to make the biggest difference. I just pray this in Jesus' name. Everybody said excitedly, Amen! So please be seated, and then we'll be right back.